Hey, and welcome to episode 8 of Kingdom Business TV. I'm your host, Wez Hone, and for the next 30 odd minutes, we are going to be taking calls, answering questions, looking at scripture, teaching, and having a little bit of fun. So first of all, I just want to say I appreciate you dialing in. I put these things on. It was just a crazy idea, purely because I want my message to get out to as many people as I can. But listen, I know you guys are busy, and it doesn't matter to me whether you're watching the short clips that come up because you don't have time, or watching the whole thing. I just appreciate the fact that you're giving your time up to watch anything that I produce. So just know that it blesses me no end that you would do that, and in return, hopefully I can just make sure that I give you heaps and heaps of value in return. That's really it from me. All right, well, thank you so much for you guys that are on. Dinesh, appreciate you too. That means the world to me that you would dial in. So why don't we get straight down to some scripture, right? You and I are on this because we are believers who run businesses, and we want to take our faith into our business life, right? So we need everything at our disposal to do a good job of that. So what I love doing is just pulling out random scriptures and then putting them into a business context, and then trying to put some structure around them just so we can get some value from that. So today we're going to go to the book of Acts. Now, what do we know about the book of Acts? Well, interestingly, right at the start of the book of Acts, the book is addressed to a guy called Theophilus. Now, if you don't know who Theo was a wealthy dignitary of the day. So we don't know if he was a business person or maybe a judge or someone like that, but he was a wealthy dignitary of the day who was a believer in Jesus Christ. And what he did, and I reckon this is a beautiful story. So Theophilus funded Luke to follow the journey of Paul and document the miracles, document the story. And that is the book of Acts, all right? We only have the book of Acts today because a wealthy business person, wealthy dignitary of the day, decided to put his money where his mouth is, and he paid a doctor to follow Paul to validate the miracles. That blows my mind, because Luke's other name was the beloved physician. He was a doctor. You know what? Here's an interesting thought. Luke was the only one with the credibility to be able to document a miracle. All the rest were just crazy believers in Jesus, but he was a doctor, and he was funded by Theophilus. So next time somebody says to you, money is of the devil, or, God doesn't care less about money, then tell them to never read the book of Acts ever again, because we only have it because somebody used the wealth that God provided them for God's cause. And it's an amazing thing, right? That's a side rant, has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I just love it, right? So Acts 16, 25. So here's the preamble, right? You know the story. Paul and Silas are going through town. There's this woman who was full of sorcery, and she just kind of follows them around, being annoying in the background with Paul and Silas. Paul cracks it after a couple of days and just says, in the name of Jesus, come out. And he calls out an evil spirit out of her. And then the people that own her lose their income stream, so they get really upset. They drag Paul and Silas into the square, and says the crowd joined in the attack. The magistrate ordered them to be beaten and flogged with rods. Now, that's got to be a good day's work. However, this is the bit that I really want to pick up. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. You ever thought about that? Like, they're just going about doing their thing. They harmed nobody, right? They got beaten and flogged with rods, thrown into jail. And what do we find out at midnight? They're singing. They're singing praises to God. And not only that, the other prisoners were listening. They had a huge amount of influence at that time. So, you know what? What about you? Like, obviously, you and I, we've never suffered persecution, right? Like these guys had. But what happens to you when you feel like you're under attack? What happens to you when your faith walk gets heavy, right? What is your response when it all seems uphill, nothing makes sense, and you just want to quit? What do you do as a believer? See, we can learn a lot from Paul. They obviously caught something different to what the world does. They thought, hang on a minute, under persecution, my love for God never changes. I'm singing hymns. And the kind of person that thinks like that blows my mind. Paul's my hero, right? Silas definitely. Like, what kind of person under persecution starts singing? We can learn a lot from them. Here's what I do find though. A lot of people, when they come under persecution, when they feel like they're under attack, when the going gets heavy in their faith, they actually slightly defect to the things of the world. So that may mean, let's put it practically, that may mean they start drinking a little bit more, maybe their language gets a bit loose, they get angry and cranky, real snappy under persecution. Versus what Paul and Silas did under persecution, they get closer to God, right? See, think about it from a spiritual attack perspective. If the enemy can push that button in your life, right, and call that spiritual attack, and then he can see the pattern that you defect to the things of the world, he'll push that button all day, every day. If the enemy sees that he pushes that button and you get closer to God, he ain't going to want to push that button too much. All right, and that's what we see from these guys. They, under persecution and under attack, they were amazing. You know, next time you're sitting there and you're thinking, I can't handle this, it's all too much for me, it's unfair, let's take a leaf out of the book and let's start singing praises and hymns to God and watch what happens when we shift the atmosphere, because people will be watching. People will be watching. All right. Do we have a caller, Craig, or do you need a minute on that one? Do you need a minute?
I can make a call if you want.
He can make a call. Well, I reckon we get some callers. By the way, if you've got how many we got on? We got not many on. That's okay. We're building this thing as we go. If you've got a question for the show, right, you can either put your phone number in the comments and we'll reach out to you, or you can call us 1300-353-192. The phone number's in the text. You can call us, we'll take your call live on air, stream it, or you can just put your phone number in the comments box and one of my team will reach out to you and we'll get you on the show. I want live calls on this show. I want you guys ringing in live, answering live, giving you my 2 cents live, because that's going to make a better show for everybody else. So either leave your phone number in the comments and we'll ring you, or ring us on 1300-353-192 and we will get your question on there. It's in the comments, yeah. All right, what do we got there, Craig? Matt.
This is Matt.
Matt, it's Wez Hone. You're on Kingdom Business TV.
G'day. How you doing this afternoon?
Good. How about you?
Great.
All right. What can I answer for you,
Mate,
Matt?
I find that there's a lot of people around me in their own business operating out of an office in their home, as do I. When do you think the world is ready for the mobile professional, or do you think there's still a call for a street business address and professional office if you're not meeting clients in your office?
I reckon it's a great question, and I reckon it's one of the beauties of 2018 or the last 5 to 10 years is that it's socially acceptable to start your business at home, right? So I mean, for me, I kind of war against two thoughts. My big thought is this.
The call didn't come through, so repeat the question.
All right, so Matt's question is, when should I get out of my home office and get a real office, and where am I at with that? I kind of feel like I war between, if you want to run a legitimate business, at some point you need to be in an office. Okay, I think there's a huge amount of kudos that you get from being in an office. I think there's a huge amount of kudos you lose by not being in one. So I think long term, I think it's a play that everybody should make. Okay, I don't really go in for the autonomous team work from home thing. I think every time I've seen that tried, it ends up as a disaster. So I think it's great to bring your team together, even if it's not always, but have a place to bring them together. And then I war against the overhead, right? You've got to spend some money on that. And that's a trade-off, because if it's going to cost you $1,000 a month for rent and you can stay at home, you can spend $1,000 a month on Facebook ads and get customers, or Google ads and get customers, or whatever. Buy the equipment that's going to make you faster, or whatever you need to do. Okay, so it makes sense to me that you would stay home for as long as you can handle it. But I do think that when you make the jump from home office to office, and that's made so easy now with co-working spaces or hot desking or whatever. When you make that jump, something shifts in your head where you start to see your business bigger and you expect more from your business. And then of course your business catches up. So by putting yourself under a bit of pressure and going to get an office, you will grow your business because it forces you to lift, your vision, lift your game, lift your activity to make sure that you can achieve that. All right. So in my mind, like the short answer for me is, yes, stay as long as you can, but don't let it become a culture, right? Like stay in your home office, save the money, redeploy it. When your business is growing, at some point you've got to make that jump, and it will actually help you shift the way you think, and you will start building a bigger business by default because you just took on the overhead that you're going to have to go pay for. And it makes you just think about a whole bigger game. And the public will reward you because there'll be a public space. Like when a professional services person says, meet me in a coffee shop, I always get a bit sketchy on that, okay? Doesn't mean it's not always a good idea, but when there's the option to meet them in the office, I think that's a great idea. So, put it off as long as you want, but you've got to go get an office.
Cool. It's just, I guess, weighing that cost advantage.
Yeah,
which I think I'm at the point where I need on.
Yeah, and I think it depends what you need most right now, right? If somebody is absolutely scratching around for every dollar to eat, then I'm like, yeah, don't get an office, get customers. If you've got a business behind you that's got a stable base and it's growing, even if it's organically, then of course you can make the jump and it won't be detrimental to your business.
Yeah, great.
Awesome, Matt. Bless you heaps.
Thanks for that. Food for thought. Talk soon.
Cheers. By the way, for those of you that are on the live right now, do me a favor and write a comment in the comments box. I kind of want to see with you guys. I want your feedback loop, right? What was your little take home from that call with Matt there? Like, what was the little thing that popped to you? I want the comments in the comments box. That's my oxygen to want to do this. I want to see that feedback loop from you guys. All right. Well, as Craig is busily working out how to do all of that, we'll go on to some teaching. Strategic alliances, all right? One of the greatest aspects of business is strategic alliances. We're talking here about marketing, getting more customers. How do you get more customers? There's a whole bunch, there's Facebook ads, there's Google ads, there's networking, there's BNI, there's a whole swag of things you could do, and they'll cost varying amounts of money. Strategic alliances, the reason why I want to cover them just here is because they cost you very little, all right? Maybe even free, just some time for you to go and set these up and get them going well. So what do I mean by strategic alliances? It's simply this: partnering up with complementary businesses and helping cross-promote. Right? That's all it is. Helping cross-promote. You're going to help them, they're going to help you. I've always used them in every business I've ever built. All right? I remember back in the window cleaning game, we cleaned windows on high-rise buildings and low-rise buildings and houses and everything. But I teamed up, I did a strategic alliance with a pressure cleaning company, right? So we clean windows, but they had the big pressure cleaners. And so here's what happens. I'm cleaning windows on high-rise buildings all the time, and I got to see buildings that were dirty. They were pressure cleaning, so they made a mess of windows. So perfect fit, right? So basically all we did was we set up a strategic alliance. Every single customer that I cleaned their windows on a building that I thought was dirty, I went to them and I said, hey, Mary, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Bob. He runs a pressure cleaning business. Here's his details. Would you like me to contact you? He can give you a quote on cleaning the building. Some say yes, some say no. It doesn't really matter. It's a process. Bob then goes to his clients and says, all right, I've pressure cleaned your building. I've made a mess. I've got a great contact who can do the windows. Would you like me to get them in to give them a quote? And some say yes and some say no. So we do business together, okay? It was a great way to leverage my contacts for him and his contacts for me, and we both grow our businesses together. I remember another time when I had a professional services company, the coaching company, where I'd put on lunch and learns with myself an accountant, and a lawyer. So once a month, we would basically put people in a room and train them. So basically what would happen is I would roll up with my 5 customers to these lunch and learns. The accountant would bring, the financial planner, the accountant would bring their 5, the lawyer would bring their 5, bring them all together, put people in a room, and we would, teach for 20 minutes each, an hour for lunch. No hard pitch, no hard sell, but just by being in the room, introducing each other to each other's clients, then we picked up work from those, right? So my clients would meet, the accountant, my clients would meet the lawyer, and they would either need work now or need work in the future. And then the next month we'd roll around, we'd do the same thing. I'd bring a different 5, they'd bring a different 5, they'd bring a different 5, put people in a room, all right? So,
I should have sound back now.
yeah, we have sound back now, okay? So, oh, it's all fun and games around here. It is all fun and games around here. Now, there are some elements to this, though, that we need to bear in mind when it comes to setting up strategic alliances, and they are simply this, all right? So if we put this here, right, strategic alliances. Now, here's the thing, that they're called strategic alliances for a reason, not ad hoc alliances, all right? If it's just like, yeah, if I think of somebody, I'll let you know, that doesn't work. This is about documenting these. Now, it doesn't need to be a contract, but at least documenting the expectations of both parties. This is what I'm going to do by when. This is what you're going to do by when. This is our expected outcome. All right. So the first part, there's 3 criteria. They need to be the same audience, meaning that you have the same ideal customer. So their customer is the perfect customer for you and vice versa. This is kind of obvious, right? But it needs to you need to be fishing in a very similar pond for this to work. Well, it could be different ponds, but the same type of fish that you're going for, okay? There's really no point in doing a strategic alliance that will get you somebody that's not an ideal customer for you. Get an ideal customer, okay? For example, most people think about the really obvious ones, but I'm a business coach. My ideal, for example, let's say my ideal customer was a trade-based business doing more than $1 million with a fleet of, at least 6 technicians, just making one up. Well, it's not as broad as business. Actually, I need to go and do a deal with the stationery supplier who have businesses on account, right? Because they've got the same customer as me. It's, the accountant, the lawyer, and those, they're very obvious. But you need to think really broad. Who else is dealing with my ideal customer? In any industry whatsoever, that's who you're going to go and do a deal with. They don't have to be linked at all to coaching or business improvement or anything. It could be the local shredding company that shred documents because only bigger businesses would use them, therefore they'd make a good alliance, right? So you've got to think really broadly about this, right? The second one, so apart from the same audience, they've obviously got to be non-competing, obviously, right? There's really little point in me setting up an alliance with another business coaching firm or any other businesses I own, the competitors to those, all right? But here's the third one that's not so obvious. You've got to have the same values. And this one is interesting. Same audience, non-competing, same values. This one's not so obvious. You have a certain standard that you hold your business to. Not everybody is the same, which means that you need to find businesses that you're complementary with, not ones that are going to take advantage of you. Let me tell you a funny story. All right, so back in the business coaching game, I reached out to a financial planning firm on the Gold Coast, right? There's a red flag for you right there, financial planning firm on the Gold Coast. Anyway, I met with this guy. I knew the owner of the business. So I met with him and we just had this quick lunch where we kind of chatted through everything and it's like, hey, what about this for an idea? I've got a whole bunch of clients that need financial planning. You've got a whole bunch of business owners. Surely we can do something. Let's do some evenings together. Yeah, great idea. Sounds great. I really like this guy. Anyway, I was like, great, let's meet again, in a week or 2 and flesh this out in detail. And he's like, great, I won't be here, I'm going on holiday, but you can meet my general manager, da-da-da. So I have the next meeting and we flesh it all out. We write the details, who's going to do what, the expectations of everybody. It's all going really, really well. We finish that meeting, we go, let's have one more quick coffee just to get all the parties around the table and just to, sign this thing off. Great. A week later, we get around, we have a quick coffee, and then the interesting thing came out. One of the people in this business, not the owner, but somebody else, leans forward in this meeting and says, let's be honest, guys, We're just in this for the cash. Let's get in, get their money, and get out. And I'm like, what? What? That's not why I'm setting up this strategic alliance. And that was the end of it, right? We basically just called it off, and I didn't proceed anymore. See, if I had jumped the gun and set up the strategic alliance and gone straight into bed with them, I would have found that out the hard way, and it would have been a disaster. So by taking it slow and stepping this thing out, you get to find out the values of them as an organization, and you get to vet them. But here's the thing. There are people running around all day, every day, talking to your ideal customers. All you need to do is find a way to partner with them, set up an alliance where they help you and you help them. You can make it formal, you can make it informal, right? You can, it can be an email to each other's database. Like I email my database suggesting this person. It could be that I give a business card. It could be that I get a little business card wallet with 3 or 4 strategic alliances in them, and I say to my clients, listen, if you ever need these services, these guys will do your deal, whatever. There's a million ways to set it up, but there are businesses out there all day, every day, selling and promoting to your customers, and if you haven't set up an alliance with them, you can make no money from that relationship. Whereas if you go set this thing up, take it slow, step it out, do a trial period, I'll pass 3 customers to you and you back to me, and then we'll meet again and check that we like it. Like, take it all nice and slow, and you will find that you will get a consistent flow of leads, of business coming in from these strategic alliances if you do them well, and it's going to cost you hardly any money because it's all built on trust. And you could go and set up 10 of these alliances with 10 different industries, with 10 different partners, and build a great funnel into your business. It takes a bit of time, it takes a few meetings, but it doesn't cost you any money, which means now there are no excuses why you wouldn't do it. Very good. Craig, do we have a call? Are we fixed? Maybe. It's not the answer I was looking for, Craig. If you're on, put your phone number in the text and let me know what's going on, or call me right now, 1300-353-192, 1300-353-192, and you and I can have a chat on here, and it will be awesome to have a chat with you.
Katie speaking.
Katie, it's Wez Hone. You're on Kingdom Business TV.
How are you going, Wez?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Awesome. What can I answer for you?
Okay, so this question is about branding and using your story.
Yep.
And as a Christian, there's lots of reasons why we have our business, and that involves good works and things like that. So in Matthew 5, it says to actually be a light and shine your light and let other people see your good works. But in Matthew 6, it says that you shouldn't shine your charitable deeds before men, or else you have your reward. So I'm just wondering where the balance is as a Christian business with your branding.
Very good. Well, to me it comes down to intent, Katie. Like, you remember Jesus, he taught the Pharisees about this, right? He was like, don't stand on the street corner and beat your chest. I've got an echo in here, Craig. I'm not sure what that is, but, and basically he addressed that issue. He said, it's not about letting the world know you're doing good things or not. Like, if you shine that light, if you keep it under a bushel, you lose, right? Because you're not having any influence, and influence is the name of the game. I think it depends on your intent. If you're going out there and telling the world about your good deeds because you want to look like a good spiritual person, right? Then I think you've completely missed it. If you're just going about building a great business for the sake of the kingdom and giving people an expression of the kingdom and loving on people as they shop with you, then by default, people are going to look upon you and go, wow, you're different. But you're not doing it for the accolade of man, you're doing it for the accolade of God. And I think that's the difference. It was everything Jesus came, and when he pulled the Pharisees apart, it was a heart issue in every case. Because, they had taken God's law and made it manageable, put it inside a little box. And that's what Jesus came to smash. And that's one of them. Like, I've stood up before at events and told people about some things that we have done, right, to help in a really small way to advance the kingdom. And my goal in telling people is only ever testimony and example. not because, and I even say to people in the moment, like, I'm not trying to impress you at all. There's people that do way more than me. But just to give people an example of what I've done. And for me, like, because Scripture says if you do it for the sake of man, you've already had your reward, is what Scripture says. But that's because people do it because they want to look like a good, righteous person. You know, they're trying to do good deeds to earn the favor of God. And that's a disaster, right? That's not giving out of, you know, appreciation of the freedom we have as believers. That's a religious duty to look good in front of your spiritual friends. And I think that's the difference, right? The difference between, you know, showing people the world and needing to tell people the world is just intent. I don't think anyone has caught the full gospel if they have to keep telling people the good deeds they do.
And I guess having that branding influence means that when we're charitable, if it influences our target market or those people, we can keep other things private. Yeah.
For sure. Like, I mean, you know, people come to me all the time for things. I remember I had a political party come to me and say, would you help shape the economic policy for us to go to the polls with? For sure. I want that influence. But I don't tell everybody about everything I do, right? It's just about learning, you know, I think we need to be led by the Spirit on this. There'll be times when we need to be overt, times when we need to be covert, and we just learn how to do that as believers. If we believe the false doctrine that we should never ever promote, you will build a terrible business, right? Because you need to tell the world about what you do and why you're good at it for customers to be able to enjoy it, and then you get to give them a good service. And whether you preach at them or whether you don't preach at them, you're going to treat them better than somebody else. And that gives people a witness, you know, and they'll come to you from time to time and say, what's different about you and your company? And you say, great, sit down, repeat after me, dear Jesus. It's much easier to have influence when you've done a good job, solved their problems, loved on them, treated them like a human, right? Then basically your actions speak for themselves. You don't need to bang your chest about it, you know, which is what the Pharisees did.
Sure.
Katie, appreciate you calling in. Hopefully we get to speak again at some point. You're awesome.
No worries. Thanks, Wez.
Cheers. Craig, do we have a 3?
Yeah, if you want. Does anyone else have any questions?
By the way, if you've listen, we're only a few minutes away from hanging up this live. I want a question from one of you lurkers. All right, I want a question. It doesn't matter. It can be faith. It can be money, Bible, family. Like, you'll work out after a while. I've got an opinion on them all, right? So if you've got a question, put your phone number in the comments or call me on 1300-353-192 and we'll get your question on here, and it will be a delight for me to take a live call on a live show. All right, so do that for me. Doesn't matter what your question is, right? We will work on an answer together. It can be a big question, could be a little question, could be a long question, whatever you guys want. All right, that would be a delight for me. But let's go to the next caller there, Craig.
Hello, Louise speaking.
Louise, it's Wez Hone. You're on Kingdom Business TV.
Oh, hello, Wez.
How are you? That's good. Louise, what can I help you with today?
Okay, well, I'm very good at inventing products and packaging, but when it comes to sales, I have a lot of fear around that, and I sort of tend to put it off, and, you know, but I desperately need to build up the sales so that the business is a success.
So you're a product-based business. Why don't you have a shout out? Tell us your product and give us a web address on air so that if anybody sees it, they can go check you out.
Thank you. Well, we make organic perfumes and some other body products, but the perfumes are amazing and they're our hero product. And the website is kissmybody.com.au.
Very good. Now, Louise, you called up to say that you struggle with sales. But what did you just do?
Yes. Oh, okay. Yes.
Was that scary?
No, it wasn't, because
Oh.
I'm passionate.
See, I think we make it so much bigger in our mind than it really is. You've got an organic perfume, right? Which is just good for the body. Okay, I mean, whether somebody likes the smell, that's different. But at the very base level, you have a product that when they put it on their body, it's not damaging. They're not filling themselves with carcinogenics. Okay, I'm assuming, right? You have a
Yes.
You have a duty. You have a duty to go and tell every possible stockist in Australia and beyond about your product. Let me put it to you this way. If you were a skincare doctor and you were walking down the beach on a Sunday afternoon and you saw a young girl who'd been sunbathing all day and you just happened to notice a spot that could potentially be a melanoma, what do you do in that moment? Do you walk on, who cares? Or do you stop and say something?
Yeah, stop and say something.
So how's that any different? I personally think, I mean, this is the emotional aspect. Like you should just go tell everybody about this great product, right? Now let's park the emotional side. Let's get really, really practical. How's business going to look if you don't tell anyone?
Yeah, bad. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now, so we've gone emotional and we've gone practical. Like without it, it all falls over. Let's go spiritual, right? Just to make sure we cover all three bases here.
Yes,
You're a born again believer, is that correct?
that's correct. Yes.
So do you remember?
love
Do you remember the day that you gave your life to Christ?
I do.
Do you remember that you immediately became a new creation?
Yes.
Do you remember that the old Louise died away and you were a new person in Christ? That means that you have no rights. You have no rights to fear. You have no rights to rejection. You have no rights to worry because that's the old Louise. You don't have rights to those feelings. Right? You need to be as bold as a lion.
Okay.
Like you go and see 10 people, 9 say no and 1 say yes, you can build a great business. So if the numbers are better than that, then you win.
Yeah.
But playing small helps no one. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help the people buy your product. It doesn't help the kingdom. It helps no one. And in my experience, if you just decide to go, right, I'm making 100 calls in, 4 days, you actually learn to like it after a while. Selling like that is a learned skill. See, emotionally, you know you need to do it. Practically, you know you need to do it. Spiritually, you know you need to do it. The only thing that's going to stop you now is discipline.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you just got to find a way to motivate yourself enough to go, I'm so sick and tired of where I am that I'm going to go do it. You'll either make this change and make this discipline change by inspiration or motivation, or desperation. Inspiration or desperation. You don't want it to be desperation because you've got to hit rock bottom. You want to just make a decision today. Bang, I am going to do 100 calls, whether they be phone calls, drop-ins, whatever you want to do. You've just got to make the decision to go and get it done. Once you start, the momentum will keep you going because you'll pick up customers.
Okay.
But the fear of rejection or the worry is it's the biggest disaster because you're a royal priesthood. You're the daughter of the king of it all. Why the heck would you be worried about what one person might say to you?
Yes. So true.
So I want you to do something for me, Louise. All right? I want you to hang up from this call and jump straight on the phone to some stockists or whatever. Do some follow-up to some old people, like whoever you've been to see. Like you need to get momentum straight off this call, straight onto the next one, and start making those calls. Whether it's old customers, new customers, doesn't make any difference. I want you to not think about it. Hang up, ring somebody else, and start ringing people for the next 1 hour.
Okay.
Will you do that for me?
I'll do that.
You are
for
dead
sure.
set awesome.
No, I feel pumped now, so
Right.
thanks very much.
So that's
I really
the
enjoyed the
inspirations.
show.
So now let's keep it moving. You're awesome, Louise. Bless you.
Thank you, Wez.
Cheers. Craig, I can see some comments. People saying, call me.
Yep, I've got a number.
You got a number. So we're talking to Alex?
Yes, we are.
Alex the man, which is different to Alex the kid, the one computer game I played when I was young for about 5 minutes.
Hello, Alex speaking.
Alex, it's Wez Hone. You're on Kingdom Business TV.
Hello, Wes. How you going?
Good, how are you?
Thanks for having me.
That's all right, pleasure's mine.
Yeah. So I'm just at that stage of business where we need to start hiring some salespeople or BDM, and I just really don't know where to start, mate. Any advice or best practices would be appreciated. We're tossing should we go full time, part time, casual, on commission, all that. So I just don't know where to start.
I mean, I think a good BDM wants an upside, right? A good BDM doesn't want a strict wage. They need to, they need to know that they're going to be looked after as a base, but they need to, they need to be able to earn a lot of money. And it's interesting because you can get a business development manager right now for 80 grand. They're likely to be terrible.
Yes.
Because a good business development manager knows what they're worth. And so what you need to do is build a system around a business development manager maybe earning, a basic wage of 60, 70, just picking random figures. But they need to be able to earn 150 to 200. And you need to be able to have built a model where they can sell enough to be able to go and earn that money, because you'll never attract the good people, right? It's like the Australian government, right? We pay such a poor amount of money to our leaders that we get the bad ones. Like, you don't want to go do that, right? Commonwealth Bank will pay, 10 million bucks to get a CEO, and Australia pays 400 grand, and we wonder why we get duds, right? You need, if you offer a good amount of money, you will attract. Now, I'm not suggesting that just by offering big money, you get the right people. This is the other side of the equation. But you've got to put your best foot forward. You've got to have built a model where they can earn lots and lots of money, right? That's like baseline number one. If you penny pinch, it's a disaster. The only way you can penny pinch and get it to work is to find someone who's really green, who's got the potential to be a good BDM, but hasn't got the runs on the board. Then you can probably pay them a base of 40, commission of 40, and grow them yourself. All right, that's obviously a cheaper way in the long term, but it's probably more expensive in the short term because you're not getting any revenue from that person for the first however many months it takes you to train them, right? So you can go cheap and green. I think the better model is keep saving until you can afford to get in the ring with the big boys and offer a lot of money to be able to get the best people. Now, I would even go so far as to say, when it comes to hiring BDMs, if you offer big money, only 1 in 3 are going to be any good.
Yeah.
So you have to be prepared to kiss some ugly frogs to end up with the right one. I mean, I would love to say that it's not like that, but that's just my experience of life. There are so many people out there who are currently earning 42 grand selling mobile phones in a shop who see an ad for 150 grand upside and they're like, yeah, I'd be brilliant at that job with no runs on the board. So they'll apply. And they could potentially convince you they're good, right? So those people do slip through the net. Obviously, if they're a BDM and they've earned big money, then you should be able to go back to their references and find out if they're any good, right? There's no doubt about it. And they will be honest with you probably at somebody of that level. My summary is BDMs are brilliant, right? Because you can put somebody to build the engine for you. But too many people do it too early, which forces them to penny pinch, which means they get, the B grade players, and it never ends up cheaper in the long run. The people that I've seen that I'm going to give the big money, then they could afford to put them through a really hard process, and they ended up better.
So at what point would you know that you're ready? So you said, somebody going too early. At what point so does that mean that, if we save up to be able to afford someone 150, then we're ready, or at that tipping point? Or
no, okay. So I think there's 2 parts to that, which is a great question. first of all, it's the money. The second of all, there's the capacity, right? So if this person was to go and earn 150 grand, for example, just using round figures, how much money do they need to have sold of your services to earn that commission?
Yeah.
Have you got the structure around you to be able to handle that or handle that growth? Remember, it doesn't come in, if they're going to get paid 150 grand to bring in $1 million, they don't do it in month one. They bring it in over a year. So you've just got to make sure that you've got the capacity to handle that level of growth with somebody doing the work, all right? So yes or no on that, tick that box. If that's a yes, then I reckon, remember, they're 150 grand in year one. They're getting paid commission on their sales, which means you're paying them out of the money you're about to get, so it doesn't cost you any money today. If their base is 70, that's only 6 grand a month. So you've got to work out at what point do I have 6 grand a month, and I probably need 3 months of their wages before they're going to start producing more money.
Yeah.
So it's now, okay, when have I got an 18 grand buffer? And then once you've got the 18 grand buffer, I'd be jumping straight away. In fact, if it were me and I wanted to grow faster, I'd probably wait until I had a 10 grand buffer, not 18, and jump early, and then just like sell like hell to make sure that I got them over the line. That's what I'd probably do, because I want to move a bit faster.
Okay. Great. And you wouldn't recommend going the young and green path, whereas I train someone up for 2-3 months with no expected results and just let them run with it?
It's a strategy. So I'm going to go with no if it's your first BDM. When you build a great business, right, and you're putting on more than one BDM, maybe you've got a team of 5, then you've got a system in place to be able to train the new ones, and you can bring the future ones in cheaper.
Right.
But for your first one, I think it's too risky because there's nothing telling you they're going to do a good job. It's only a hunch.
Okay. Yep. Gotcha.
Alex, you're a legend. Appreciate the call.
Awesome. Thank
Bless
you.
you. So before I finish up, I want you to do something for me. If you're getting value from the show, I want a comment from you in the comments box. A thumbs up, one of these, a thank you. What is it that's popping for you out of all of this? I want the feedback from you. Whether you're watching on Facebook, whether you're watching on YouTube, please give me a comment. That would mean the world to me. That's the end of episode 8. I'll see you live on Thursday at 3 p.m. Queensland time for episode 9. Bless you heaps. Have a super week.